In the backdrop of multiple cases of alleged violence against Chinese students in Australia, the Chinese embassy in Canberra has issued an advisory to its students in the country to increase safety awareness. The advisory that has been posted on the embassy website urges students to contact the embassy through the displayed numbers in case of any adverse event. The move comes over a month after Chinese media widely covered the case of violent attacks against two Chinese students in Canberra's bus interchange. Close to 170,000 Chinese students are in Australian schools, colleges and universities, making up for a third of the international student community in the country. On August 4, Chinese nationals were injured when an Australian student beat up classmates and a tutor with a baseball bat at Canberra's Australia National University. The attacks had also prompted Chinese officials to urge Australian authorities to ensure the safety of Chinese students. In July this year, concerns were raised on Mandarin flyers in Melbourne that warned Chinese students that they were not welcome in Australia. The warning further adds to the already tense relationship between China and Australia over Chinese Communist Party interference in Australia. A vehicle ploughed into pedestrians in Melbourne in Australia, injuring at least 12. The vehicle's driver has been arrested now by the police. The driver ploughed into holiday shoppers in a busy intersection in Melbourne City in Australia. The police have not given a possible motive behind the attack yet. The police have not given an official count of injuries either, but local media outlets in Australia are saying at least 12 people have been injured. 2 people had been taken to the hospital, including a preschool child with a head injury. The pedestrians were struck in front of dozens of people as they crossed the busy intersection at the beginning of peak hours. Sections of the city's public transport system are in complete lockdown. Dozens of police cars, fire trucks and ambulances are present in the area. Accusing Pakistan of plotting a controversy with Rohingya terror groups, a Bangladesh minister and Awami League General Secretary Obaidul Qadir said that India and Bangladesh should join hands to fight the menace of terrorism. Qadir praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his contribution in boosting India-Bangladesh bilateral relations. Coming down heavily on Pakistan, Qadir said that the Dhaka government has received reports of Pakistani spy agency ISI hatching a conspiracy with the terror groups among the Rohingya minorities. The Bangladesh Transport Minister said, and I'm quoting, "We have reports that Pakistan's ISI is hatching a conspiracy with the terror groups among the Rohingya people," unquote. The Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, or the ARSA, is a terror group comprising the Rohingyas. Nearly 700,000 Rohingyas have fled to Bangladesh since the Myanmar military crackdown began in August. In what appears to be a part of a campaign to cover up atrocities against Rohingya Muslims in Rakhine State, Myanmar has barred a top United Nations official investigator from visiting the country. Yang Hee Lee lashed out at the government led by Aung San Suu Kyi, saying that she is puzzled and disappointed about the decision made only days before she was due to make an official visit to the country. She further said that the declaration of non-cooperation with her mandate can only be viewed as a strong indication that there must be something terrible happening in Rakhine State. The news comes amidst an investigation in a village where a mass grave has been discovered in the region. Days after a pro-government news website in Maldives published an anti-India editorial, a joint Maldivian opposition has slammed the government. A statement released by the joint coalition website blamed President Abdullah Yameen for an anti-India stance. Former Presidents Mohammad Nasheed and Abdul Gayoom also took to Twitter to express their disagreement with the editorial piece. Nasheed said, and I'm quoting, "Strongly condemn anti-India diatribe in regime mouthpiece Vagatu. President Yag's reckless foreign policy is destroying our relationship with India. Maldives must be sensitive to India's security and safety," unquote. Abdul Gayoom also backed India. He claimed, and I'm quoting, "No Maldivian in his right mind would subscribe to such views. India has been and remains a very close and trusted friend of Maldives." The article, which was approved by Maldivian President Abdullah Yameen himself, targets India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi as an extremist Hindu and declares that India is the Maldives' biggest enemy. China, on the other hand, it describes as its new best friend. Ties between the current Maldivian government and New Delhi came under strain following Mali's decision to sign a free trade agreement with China, a development that caught India off guard. Polling has started in Catalonia to elect a new regional government. The Spanish government directed Catalonian leaders to run for regional elections after a controversial independence referendum in October this year. There are 7 contenders in the election, each with a total 3 contenders who want to remain with Spain, 3 who want independence, and one unaligned. In October this year, separatists who dominated the Catalan government declared independence from Spain following a controversial referendum. Spain refused to acknowledge the results and declared the referendum as illegal. Spain's Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy sacked the Catalonian regional government, dissolving the regional parliament and called for an early election. After 2 years of dispute over judicial reforms, the European Union executive has now launched an unprecedented process to suspend Poland's voting rights in the European Union. The European Commission will now ask the EU governments to declare that Poland's changes to the judiciary constitute a clear risk of a serious breach of EU values. EU Commission's deputy head said that Poland had 3 months to remedy the situation and added that the executive could revoke its decision if it did so. The next step in the process is that EU governments will hear Poland out and ask it to address their concerns in the Council of the European Union. But if 22 out of the European Union's 28 countries and the European Parliament are not satisfied, the process will proceed to the next stage, which may mean further sanctions.
Concerns have deepened. Within a period of 2 years, a significant number of laws have been adopted, 13 in total, which put at serious risk the independence of the judiciary and the separation of powers in Poland. The common pattern of all these legislative changes is that the executive or legislative powers are set up in such a way that the ruling majority can systematically politically interfere with the composition, the powers, the administration and the functioning of these authorities, thereby rendering the independence of the judiciary completely moot.
Right after the EU's decision, the President of Poland announced that he had signed into law 2 bills overhauling the judiciary that defy European Union criticism that the legislation undermines the rule of law in the country. Andrzej Duda said that the changes were an extremely democratic solution.
Przygotowałem swoje prezydenckie projekty, złożyłem. Ustawy te zostały uchwalone przez polski parlament, najpierw przez Sejm, potem przez Senat, bez poprawek. I podjąłem decyzję o podpisaniu obydwu tych ustaw.
However, people in Warsaw criticized the move, saying that it goes against the Polish constitution.
Jestem rozczarowana, że po prostu nasz prezydent działa pod dyktando prezesa danej partii. Powinien reprezentować nas, naród.
Pope Francis will take part in the funeral for Cardinal Bernard Law, the former Boston Archbishop who resigned in disgrace during the Catholic Church's sex abuse scandal. The Vatican made the announcement hours after Law died at a hospital in Rome following a long illness. The Pope expressed condolences to the College of Cardinals on Law's death. Pope Francis said in a statement, and I'm quoting, "I raise prayers for the repose of his soul, that the Lord God, who is rich in mercy, may welcome him in his eternal peace. And I send my apostolic blessing to those who share in mourning the passing of Cardinal, whom I entrust to the maternal intercession of the Virgin Mary," unquote. The funeral will be held in St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican, with the Mass celebrated by Angelo Sodano, the Dean of College of Cardinals. In order to expand its military presence in Central Asia, Russia has started deploying its armored and attack helicopter units of the armed forces towards the Afghan-Tajikistan border. According to official Russian sources, the Russian military has begun sending heavy equipment to Tajikistan in order to bolster the hard-pressed anti-terrorism efforts of the country's border security forces. Among the array of Russian military assets being relocated are T-72 main battle tanks, BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicles, BTR-80 armored personnel carriers, Mi-24 attack helicopters and D-30 howitzers. The restationing of Russian forces comes amid repeatedly expressed concerns by Moscow that defeated terrorist groups in Syria and Iraq are most likely trying to expand their bases in Central Asian countries, namely Afghanistan.